Welcome to Minding My Business. I hope you're having a blessed up day. And if you're not, hopefully today's episode is going to bless you up. This was a show dedicated to celebrating people that have created a lane for themselves and are doing extraordinary things in the world. The whole point of the show is to help you elevate your business, your mindset, and your life. Enjoy the show. And I'm really excited for today for a few reasons. But the first reason is that we have our very first male guest. Like, what? Yes, next level stuff here. We're bringing our males on. And the reason I intentionally chose Dennis was because, well, Dennis and I started a new adventure together. He and his company are, which I'm going to tell you in a second, we're writing the book. So I went with their motivation and success publishing company, and we have a lot of big things in the future for you guys. So really excited. And thank you guys for tuning in. I was so excited to announce Dennis that I totally skipped the part of I hope you guys are having a blessed up day. If you're not having a blessed up day, I am certain that today's episode is going to bless you up. So with that being said, please welcome my friend and business partner, Dennis Postema. He helps CEOs, industry leaders, entrepreneurs create a legacy. TV producer and production coaching, motivation and success publishing, serial entrepreneur. I just learned some new things about him just a second ago. So Dennis, thank you so much for coming on. Did I miss anything as far as the intro?
No, Tanya, it was perfect. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Thank you for being here and for being our first male guest. You are literally paving the way here. So, um,
Trendsetter.
exactly. Tell us a little bit. I always get really curious about the human being behind the role, task, responsibilities. You have a lot of responsibilities. You have a lot of, one thing that when I first met you and we had you had this gathering with women empowerment, I believe, right?
Yep. Yep.
And
Girl on fire. Yeah.
Girl
Yeah.
on Fire. And you like the way that you communicate with people, your demeanor, your energy with all of the heightened success that you have, the way that I get to, see you on Instagram, that we all get to see you on Instagram, the way that you treat your wife, your daughters, your team. It's just really inspiring. And I would love to know first and foremost is out of all the industries you already are in, what got you going to choose the pursuit of being this serial entrepreneur with publishing and motivation and leadership and bringing people together? Like, where did this stem from?
So I think everything just was a step at a time. So I originally, when I was 20, I got into finance and started my own company then at 23. And then everything was a logical or illogical next step. Either way, it was a next step. So when I started my company, then the next company was, okay, well, if the people ahead of our financial company are training, we found some places where they lacked in training. So I was like, well, since we're doing the training, why don't we open a company that does that? So then it
Mm.
was just the next logical step. And then in 2012, I put together my first book. I'm like, I can do it on my own. And then I spent like 60, $75,000 messing it all up and doing it all completely wrong. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that's not exactly the best way to do it. Figured out how to do it the right way. And I was like, I'll bet you there's other people who think the exact same way as me, is that I'm going to save money by doing it on my own. And I'm going to do it this way. And you're going to either pay in sweat equity or actual dollars when you do one of those things. So, and then just literally, starting the company with from book publishing to magazine publishing, and then just the next logical step was, turning podcasts into television shows and making TV shows because 80% of the content on the internet that's consumed is video. So we wanted to start a television network during the pandemic to where we could really get that out there and become the Netflix of personal development so that we could really help
Mm.
individuals and get them to the next level. So that's, everything was a semi-logical step.
And it also sounds too that it was personal before it became something where you're helping people. And that's like what I'm picking up with you. It's
Yeah.
not like, you're talking about I did this and this. You were first a consumer
Hmm.
and a client before you then offered a service. And a lot of times people, are selling certain things, but they've never done it.
Yep. You nailed it. I was a consumer first for each and everything, or I needed to improve on it. So I've always been in the workout space. I always took care of myself and worked out. But then as the stress and work added up, I took care of myself less and less. So then in 2015, I started to Inspire Nutrition to not only hold myself accountable, but recognizing that other entrepreneurs needed to hold themselves accountable too, because otherwise they're going to be spending all their money that they earn back to getting your health back on track.
Yeah, yeah, and I see that too. I see up there is like, are those little meal plans up there? I'm trying not like to like still pay attention. I'm like, oh, food.
Yes, those are recipe books. Yeah, those are keto recipe
Oh,
books. So I've got recipe
wow.
books. Yep.
You make it look so easy and effortless. And I hear this all the time because I get this also. Like, you make it look easy. I was like, that's when you know somebody's playing at a pro level
Yeah.
because there's a lot of like behind the scenes stuff, a lot of ups and downs, emotions, energy, mindset, the physical aspect, the spiritual aspect. So like what are some of your DMOs, your daily methods of operation, your habits or your rituals, or if you have routines that you know like when you follow them, you can tackle anything, any fire, any obstacle, any like setback, but the days that you don't do them, you're a little bit all over the place and operating in chaos. So would you, I think people always want to know like what is your routine? What are your habits?
Yeah, and I feel like you're always good at like calling me out on that too. So one thing is to have an accountability friend who's not afraid to tell you, "Hey, Dennis, make sure you do these exercises
Yeah.
to make sure you're taking care of your health or whatever it may be." So I appreciate you for that. Well, so I start what I do the night before. I go ahead and I'm always planning my day, but part of that is filling out my victory journal, and I'll get to that,
Mhm.
and I'll start with the morning. So in the morning, I get up. Obviously, I'm thanking God that I made it another day and start with gratitude. I have a gratitude journal, my appreciating all that you have. I put down a bunch of different things that I'm grateful for in the present tense, even things that I haven't got yet. So I go through that and I refill it out to a T. Now this is on a good day. So I go ahead and I fill that out, and then from there I go and work out. So this is at 5 a.m. I got to feed the dogs in there, but that's has to happen. So I go and I work out 5 a.m. and then I work out for about an hour and a half between lifting weights and doing some HIIT training. And from there, I'm always listening to something motivational during that time. It started to be a power hour of power, and then it just continued to grow. So from then till 9 o'clock, as I get ready, I'm listening to something motivational as I get to the office, and then have my day, have ton of appointments, check in with all my leadership teams. And then at the end of the day, I go through and I fill out my victory journal. That's the wins for the day. So that's what's going to boost your self-esteem. And I have people say, well, I don't know what wins and whatnot. Well, you went to work or you got out of bed or you woke up. It can start small. And then as you continue to do that, the goal is to build on that and literally like a teeter-totter, get the positive in your life to be over 50% to where you're always shifting your mindset and keeping your mindset clean and keeping getting rid of the trash and the negativity in your life. And then when I do my victory journal, I then plan the next day and make sure that I do that. And then Sunday night, I plan the week. So, and that's when I'm in my A game mode. So that's when I'm in championship mode, Tanya.
Championship mode. Yeah, we're throwing a little diamonds on you guys because big things are about to happen with us. So, but it's true because everybody wants to know. One of the biggest things that I'm sure you get out as well is like when you're talking to people who have the aspiration to be a leader and to live life in their greatness and in their full potential. There's certain things that you need to do in order to operate at that level of efficiency. Have you always had that system in place, or was it because sometimes I'm not gonna lie, especially with my men, that's just like I need to start bringing like powerhouse men on the show, so these other guys will maybe listen from a male standpoint versus like, oh, this, whatever, whatever. But journaling, you mentioned you've got a victory journal, you've got a gratitude journal. I've gotten a lot of backlash about, and I used to fight it myself. I was like, oh, stupid, I'm wasting my time, like what's the point? Because you can't like pick it up, right? Like you can't like pick it up, you can't touch it, you can't see what the ROI is. And so I asked, this is like, has this always been part of your daily methods of operation, or was that something that new was acquired? And like what was the storyline in that of like how you see that ROI?
Well, I want to add first of all to the part of what was it always like that? Absolutely not. It definitely was not. I got success at a very young age, and with that comes great responsibility, which means great stress, which means, you act like an idiot. So really, I used to not take care of myself, when we did go out and hang out with people and drink, it was way too much, and things like that, because you're doing your stress, understanding healthy coping mechanisms is one of the things, and that's where the gratitude journal came into play. And that's where understanding good coping mechanisms with weightlifting and with what I'm doing there, and then gratitude and being thankful, and with my health issues, that also came into play. And then I came up with the victory journal when I wrote the positive edge, because I tell everybody, just like in being able to fly on Peter Pan, you got to find your happy thoughts. So like, so something that's going to drag you back to being positive when something negative happens in your life. But what I would
Mhm.
say to those people when it comes to ROI, and I tell this to people in my meetings all the time, listen, you don't think it works. But people who are in the level that you want to be at do it and say it does. When Brian Tracy tells me to write goals on there, and he had a mastermind that literally all he did is make them check in and write their goals every day. And literally they, 10x what they were doing just by doing that. If those results aren't happening in your life, what is it going to hurt to try it? If you
Mhm.
don't think a gratitude journal works and it's a waste of time, are you where you want to be at in your life? If you're not, how about you try it? Successful people are doing it all over the place. If you try it and it doesn't work for you, because just like a workout, they have to be good for everybody. Maybe you have to do something with visual or video or something like that. That's fine too. But if you're not at the level you want to be at, how about you try it and then come back to us and tell us whether or not we're getting an ROI?
Mm.
So
Mm.
that's how I feel about that. So.
Yeah, and that's powerful too, because I don't I like to get to the core of that because I feel like there when you're in this space of change and transformation or going there's always some type of like a story that's happened and people they want to know like the level of how to remove that resistance and speaking of resistance like when you do have like chaotic things happen or part of that part of your mind that's like, oh, this is stupid. What's the point? Like, even for the next level of growth, because that stuff doesn't end. Like, I know it
Mhm.
doesn't end for me. I just know that it doesn't run the show. Does that still like in your mind as you set bigger goals and bigger targets for yourself?
Always. It's always on my mind. Always on my mind, and how do I keep my head right? How do I keep those everything in alignment when I go for those next goals without getting chaotic, without taking on too much. A lot of my team has helped with that, and to where that allows me to get to those levels quicker, and to be that person that I want to be and to hit those milestones. But
Mm,
it's constantly, you talk about chaos. You got to understand that your problems are not going to go away. So once you take accountability and you realize that you're the one who's going to have to solve those problems, instead of trying to just ignore them or pass them off, or whatever it may be.
mm. Um, so like when you know it's time, so say like, okay, you've hit this next level goal, you've got a vision, it's time to execute, you have to step into some new shoes,
Yeah.
overcome some things because you got to become a new person. But when you're pivoting or when you're starting a new business or when you're even letting go of a business, because I'm sure that's happened to you, right? You're like, okay, this isn't in alignment. What tools do you use to give you clarity on when it's time to pivot and when it's time to pivot? Or maybe I said that twice. When and where?
Well, first of all, that's your heart and your gut are going to tell you, mixed with your brain. They're going to tell you, you're going to feel it in your gut first and in your heart
Mm,
whether or not something's right. And usually you should stop ignoring that when that happens, because 9 times out of 10, that's always true. Whether you get a feeling about somebody or a feeling about a business decision, that's always something you got to come into alignment with. And then as far as whenever I set those goals and whenever I have to pivot, I take massive action. So I don't sit there with paralysis analysis. I take massive action, and I go with the money loves speed, success loves speed theory. So I'm always pivoting, right? I'm hitting walls all the time. And when I do that, when I hit that and do it the wrong way, then I know I have to pivot and do it the right way. And so I always, when I sit down and write those goals out or do that plan, I always look at what does the end look like and how do I work backwards from there strategically and put a strategic plan together. So if I'm at this level, what does my day look like? How does my day change? When I started working out for an hour and a half a day, I'm like, well, why, what does a billionaire's day look like? Well, I would never give up my health if I had $1 billion, right? I would never do that. My workout would be every single day. It would be for an hour and a half at minimum. It would be this, this, and this, and this, or every single day. And that's what I would do. I'd put my health first. So I decided, well, I should probably do that. So it's constantly starting with the end in mind, strategically planning and working it backwards. And then, there's pivots happen all the time. You just gotta learn to roll with it. And that's what
Mm.
that's what we do.
You mentioned, your gut, your intuition, your heart, your mind. For somebody that has no experience on what is intuition, what is that gut feeling? Like what advice would you say to like how they could strengthen that muscle, or how did you strengthen that muscle when you first started listening to your intuition and being able to have that discernment?
By not doing it. By not doing it. Like everything else, I learned the hard way. You get that when you get that funny feeling about a business decision, and that may be, whatever it is, it just doesn't feel right. It just, if you get a funny feeling, or you're just like, well, is this right for me? You, without obviously without paralysis analysis again, but if you get that feeling, and I ignored those feelings because I'm like, well, I want to hit that success level quicker. So, this person can help me. But give you a great example. I worked with somebody who was very, very, very successful and very good at what they did. And ethically, I started seeing some things that didn't feel right to me. And I ignored it because it was their business, it's what they did. And it got to the point where I couldn't work with them or be in the same vicinity. And so even though I would lose a lot of money and a lot of dollars by doing that, I had to walk away. And spiritually, what that did for me and what it did for my business is crazy. It's just
Mm.
it blew up. And it's one of those things where
Oh, in
you
a
think
positive way.
in a positive way. Absolutely. It did it, because realistically, you think you need those things, but if it's hurting the way you act as a person or the way you feel as a person, that doesn't allow you to be your best self. And
Mm.
so me walking away from that relationship was really, really good because what I thought would cost me money ended up opening doors that are great, like that have helped me in so many ways. So it's a
Mm.
blessing. You never know
Yeah.
what's on that other side. You think one door closes and another door opens. You never know what's on that other side.
And that requires like a lot of courage too. And as you mentioned, like trusting that intuition because that's the unknown, right? And like it's like the risk.
Hmm.
W-
And it's
How do you,
scary too, just so everybody knows. It's a scary
yeah,
thing. When those things happen, for entrepreneurs, that's a scary, scary thing. So,
yeah. And I want to go back to the beginning part of your routine and like, is that why you like your routine are like your non-negotiables, your staples?
mhm. Absolutely. It's a non-negotiable. My coping mechanism, I have to, when I'm obviously not coming off of surgery or anything like that and healing, I have to work out. I have to. There's just my mental clarity, and it's not for my physical physique. Obviously, that's great, but what it is, it's for my mental clarity. It's for me getting rid of the stress, getting rid of that anxiety. It's one of those things so I can think the right way, and it's my time to really become a better person. So that's
Yeah.
what I chose is what works for me.
Because there's a lot of people, the whole paradigm shift from the hustle culture to the alignment culture, and they're like, I saw a video there the other day, and there's like, no, your solution is like versus all these self-care things is to just like go to work.
Mhm.
And I know when I skip my workouts, I am not my mentally sharp self that I
Mhm.
know that I could be at that full capacity.
It's yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a completely different day, and it's not good. Like when I miss a workout, it's just immediate. Like you feel like less like
Hmm.
not like a failure, but like you let yourself down. If you don't hold those promises to yourself, then all of a sudden you start questioning your confidence and whatnot. So that's to me, it's accountability for myself, and then other people see that actions that we put into working out or whatever your coping thing mechanism may be or whatever you're using to make sure that your non-negotiables are,
Hmm.
Keeping that promise to yourself will be seen through the actions that you take. So,
Mm. And how have you noticed that you mentioned it like indirectly? How have you noticed that expand into your business? And you're a dad and a husband, like, and a man of faith. Like, how have you seen that by you being selfish and taking care of yourself, positively impact or negatively impact your your relationship with your children, with your wife, and then as a boss, as a leader?
well, my temper is like, like when I feel it going up, it's literally I get aggravated about 50 times quicker when I'm not working out. So it's not even it's for me to be a great dad or a better dad or a good husband, I have to do that because all that anxiety buildup, it's not gone from the day if I don't do that, if I don't put in that workout. So I may be aggravated at a coworker, at my daughter, at my wife, at anybody for no reason. It has nothing to do with them just because I didn't do what I needed to do. So even though it may seem selfish or for yourself, it's also it expands out because you're taking care of yourself. You're putting an
Mhm.
oxygen mask on yourself before you help others. If you don't do that, you're affecting everybody else in probably a negative way, and you don't even know it because you didn't take care of yourself because
Mhm.
you skipped that, and then now you're not just hurting yourself, but you're hurting all of those facets around you. So it affects my business tremendously if I'm not that person. So
Mhm.
and my relationships because I just I'm not as good of a guy to be honest with you. It just because I'll be stressed out and whatnot, and it's something I have to make sure that I make it a non-negotiable.
Because I know that's a big one. I don't have kids, but I just hear a lot of people like use that as a cop out to say I don't have time because I have to either choose like my family time or I choose my self-care time. And I only speak on my experiences or what I know, but I that's why I asked this question because I mean I know the results. You're going to be a better human being, but for those men out there that run multiple businesses, they have a family, and they don't have time to take care of themselves.
I would say 100% that's an excuse, and you need to take accountability for yourself. I wrote in the 1 Hour Millionaire, which is a book I haven't released yet. I wrote, you need to find an hour for yourself to take care of that day, every day. And that's no matter what that time is. I had somebody say, well, the only time I could do that with kids and whatnot is at 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, okay, then it's at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that, that's the way it is. You have to adjust and put together. Look at Mark Wahlberg's schedule and the way he runs his like nightly routine and morning routine. That I can tell you that it is possible. You just haven't made that your mindset and you've allowed your identity to shift into a way that you say that it's not possible. You need to reinvent your identity and allow yourself to understand that it is possible. You're just not taking accountability for the fact that you could do it, it's just maybe not as convenient as you would like it. Of course, I would love to sleep until 10 o'clock and then work out till noon and then come into work for a couple hours and yada yada. That would be that I say I would love it, but I probably hate it. But I would love to have that option, right? So, but realistically, I would say that's an excuse and you're not holding yourself accountable. You can do it. You can. People say, well, I don't like lifting weights. Do you like walking? Well, if you can't walk, can you lift arm weights? Can you move? There's everything. There's all sorts of things you can do. Exercise doesn't need to be hardcore weight training or whatever it may be. It can be anything that helps you be, get to that place that you need to be at. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say that you have to do a hard accountability check and get an accountability partner fast if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and hire a coach or hire some type of support for education. But this also goes back into the earlier part of our conversation where you're saying it's just like one foot in front of the next. Like you're not
Mhm.
going to see the whole picture, but like
Yeah.
you started with what you needed and then it expanded into something big. And it's the same concept, I think, with any area in life.
I would say also, if any men are going through that, they need to look at your programs because your programs help with a lot of those areas extremely well. Like, not to give you a shout out on your TV show, but like realistically, like your programs really like you want to talk about and fine tune too. So there's not anything missing in any step. That's what's great about what you do is everything is meticulously planned. So there's not like a hey, you know, kind of do this. It's literally telling you do this. And if you don't have a coach, that's a life-changing experience, and you will never not have a coach in whatever area you need to improve in. If you don't have a coach now and you try it once, I can promise you it'll change your life.
Yeah, you got to have strategy. Like you
Hmm.
have to have strategy and then the execution is the power of free will. And, I love how you're talking about identity shifts. And
Hmm.
this goes into like when I started learning about energy psychology and the chakras, there was a question in there when it was about like more so the solar plexus area, which is the power of free will. And I just like, I was like, oh, I want to use this question all the time because I think it really is powerful. And so the question is like, what did you have to overcome and who did you have to become to be this man that we are talking to today?
That's a very good question. So, well, who did I have to overcome? I had to overcome somebody who thought that they were bulletproof at a young age, you know, and could rule the world. And fortunately, has, you know, a good sense of humor. He let me know at 25 that I was not that man. So that helped. And I had to overcome unhealthy stress relievers that I had in my life. I had to understand that problems aren't going to go away by ignoring them or by you know, going out and binge drinking for a night or whatever it may be. I had to overcome, you know, using that as a coping mechanism and realizing that was. And then once you learn, that's what I love about identity shifting. You can change because if human beings are the only people who have been given that by God, is you can choose a new identity immediately. You can change everything about the person you are just like that. You just need to decide. And so I mapped out what does that guy that I want to be like look like? What does he do? What time does he get up? How does he treat his family? How does he treat his body? How does he treat his coworkers? And I needed to become that man. And if you decide that and you put the right things in force, the right people in your life, a lot of that's going to be the right people, right? That's going to have friends that hold you accountable and that tell you the good things and are celebrating your successes with you versus hating on you, right? So that's a big part of it too. Then you can become that person right away. And then if that doesn't work, you can change it again. And there's going to be a time when you're going to re-identify yourself again. A new identity or an alter ego is something you can do at any point in your life, at any time. Where else can you do? Hey, I'm just going to become an honest person starting today. Or where else can you say, instead of saying I'm going to quit smoking or whatever it may be, how about saying I'm a non-smoker? Right now, you can do that. Or I'm a non-drinker. It's just what I don't do. I'm this. You can do it right now. Anybody can change that at any time.
Mhm. And you're mentioning the word identity shift, and like for those people that maybe this is the first time they've heard of that, and I know you just explained it, what is identity shift? Like, what is an identity shift?
So for me, an identity shift is, let's say this is the person you are, and the person you are does this, this, and this. You know, they get up late, they do whatever it may be. They get up late, they don't work as hard, they try about 50% of the time, they go out to eat and it's unhealthy and all those different things. Let's say that's your life right now. An identity shift is just because you did that today doesn't mean you have to do that anymore. You can stop being the person that does every one of those things and literally reinvent your daily routine and reinvent the person that you are right away. You can do that immediately. That's why the alter ego is always such a good way of doing it because what would the best person that you could become, what would that person's day look like? You can literally change that in your mind and decide to do that. And that's literally all you have to do is decide to do it. That's the best way that I can explain it is what does that person look like? And then just decide to become it and make it a non-negotiable. Like you
Mm.
said, like make that's your life. That's what you do.
You mentioned too that you actually still do that. I forget the word of the journaling that you said that you write it in present tense, right? Like you're writing it like this is who I am. And like does it feel natural in the beginning? Does it feel really awkward? Like
Well, you just have to, it does feel awkward in the beginning. Absolutely. Because you know that, so you have to overcome that. And the only way to do that is practice. Like with anything else, you have to come. That's why I said the victory journal, you say that you didn't have wins. Well, I did this you still woke up, you still did this, you ate today. It may be small victories, right? So you have to just practice just like with anything else. And then as you start to do meditation, meditation is hard when you're starting out. Meditation is very hard. If you're an active entrepreneur that's going crazy, it's hard to do meditation at first. So you have to practice, and then you have to visualize it because you have to feel that those things you're writing, when you write those, you have to stop and you have to meditate and feel that, okay, this is really, and picture yourself and put yourself in that moment and let me see Dennis Postema is here, and this is what he does for a living, and this is what he makes, and this is where he goes on vacation with his family, and this is what happens. And when you visualize it and you get that feeling, the happy feeling, the feeling that comes with it is what's changing your life. Not just writing it down. You have to get in that moment and put yourself there and imagine that. And when you do that, that will change your life. That it will life changing. And
Amen,
I can
amen to
promise you
that.
that. Yeah.
And I love that you said too, it's like the analogy of working out, like putting in the daily repetitions, strengthening the muscle. And what I've seen is a lot of people, they quit before they even start because they think that they just suck at it. And you're like, yeah, you do suck at it. It's a muscle, it's weak.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, if you wrote in your gratitude journal today, tomorrow nothing will have changed in your life. So it's the same thing as if you went to the gym for the first time today, you would look in the mirror tomorrow and nothing will change in your life. That's how people become obese. That's how people become in shape. That's how people anything because
mhm,
you have to be in it for the long haul. So that you have to give up on that immediate gratification. Understand it's a process. So
mhm.
because
Would
you probably
you
go ahead.
would you say that, or would you say perhaps redirecting the way that you're measuring
Mhm.
success and how you're measuring your progress?
Absolutely. That's a much better way of explaining it is measuring, redirecting the way that you measure your success. Make it that you did your gratitude journal and that you did your workout and that you did whatever. You read 10 pages in your book that you
Mhm.
wanted to read. You wrote 10 pages in your book that you wanted to versus, oh, I didn't get my book done or I didn't get my workout done. I didn't get down to the weight I wanted or in the shape, lifting the shape that I wanted. So yeah, that's a much better way of putting it. That's why I love victory journals. So
I've never heard of that. I just call them the daily wins or the daily
yeah.
audits, but I love the victory journals. Like it's just same concept, but you got to see what words resonate with you. I love the victory,
Yeah.
victory.
I will send
And
you that with the other book that I haven't sent you yet.
I know, how many books have you written, by the way?
20. 20 that are published.
Sheesh. And
And I
we're
think I
waiting for
have
the audios
11.
next, right? No more,
Yes, yeah.
no more until you do your first. This is where the accountability. I'm like, Dennis, no more writing a book until you go back and you do an audio book.
I have a strong feeling you hold me accountable to that too. So
Oh,
you
for
got
sure.
it. I
Yeah.
actually, you brought it up last time and I went immediately to Spencer's office and I was like, hey, Tanya says I need all these on audio, like stat. So yeah, we already have things in place where they're all going to be on audio.
Yeah, I say that because like if there wasn't audiobooks, I don't think I would have learned as much as I've learned today
Yeah.
because you talk about the power hour, efficiently multitasking, like being able to sit and read, I would not have gotten the information I have today. So I'm a huge advocate on like understanding your learning style.
Yes.
Um, and it's reading is not my learning style. I had a really hard time reading. I was like left-handed dyslexia in slow classes, but it just
Mhm.
wasn't my learning style.
Right. Yeah, you bring up a very good point. People either can learn, visually or by hearing and audio or by so that's a good knowing your learning
Yeah.
style is important. And my learning style is actually not reading either. I read at night, but throughout the day it's all either video or audio. So I'm like a detriment to myself when you think about it from not having my audiobooks. So
I would just
yeah,
say you're doing a disservice for those words, just like,
yeah,
encouraging.
yeah.
But this you guys are seeing real live accountability. I think the
Mhm.
point of it too is like when you really care about people, you're gonna support their goals. Sometimes you might even help them clear up their vision, and you're not gonna support their emotions.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what I would consider. And speaking of those things as like accountability and friendship, what are some core values of the people that you really let in close into your heart, in your inner circle, the people you would call, they call family, like soul family friends, and the people that just that you really allow to get to know you on a vulnerable level. What are those core values?
I I would say usually it's not a must, but I would say usually they have a faith background. It's some part of faith in their life that keeps them grounded. I would say it usually just ends up naturally. It's none of those
Mm,
things that come out at first. It's that, it's just one of those things where I think there's some attraction there to those type of people that have some background. I'm not saying that you go into church every week or anything like that, but I think having the higher power and having God in your life usually ends up being people that resonate with me. Obviously, that's not they don't have to do that, but that's it just ends up that way. Core values, I would say they do what they say they're going to do, and they hold themselves accountable first. Accountability is great in their life. They do what they say they're going to do, and then in turn, usually what they do is what they also do what they say they're going to do for other people, and are genuine people that really just want to help people and want to help. That's why I think the people that I resonate with in business are people who are doing it not just for the financial gain. Obviously, the financial gain is something we all need, but doing it to change the world and to help people get to those next levels. And that's what lights you up. And that's so I love when I hang out with people like that, and that people aren't afraid to, tell me if it's something, that I need to improve on. I love constructive criticism. I haven't always liked constructive criticism. I used to hate it, but I love when like a friend would say, "Hey, I want to do this with a reel instead of what you did the way that you did it." So like having good friends like that are in business with you,
mm.
that are almost like you said, family, is that what you called it? Yeah, family
Yeah.
versus business partners or whatnot. I love that because then you don't feel like titles and things like that are such a big thing. It's like, hey, we're in this together. So you think of, we're it's a partnership. So core values is, honest, just the old golden rule. Treat you the way that you want to, treating other people the way that you want to be treated really is important to me. And I think that's probably one of my biggest core values.
Hmm. Surprisingly, I get like when I'll work with people, even that are making like 7+ figures running multiple businesses. One of the things that surprised me in the beginning, but then I realized how common this was, is that they didn't have core values and a mission for the company. And they were wondering why there was such a high turnover rate with their employees, or they were bringing in maybe people that were just not in alignment. So, how important is that? And like, what is your experience with the clarity of all the businesses that you're running and making sure that, everybody is like in the same moving on the same team.
I love that. Well, there's two things that I bring up there. One, we wrote back in 2010, we wrote the 10 commandments for Postema insurance and investments. So that was we wrote that, and we actually just had a meeting on that. So it's funny that you say that because it goes back to resonating with people. We just had a meeting about that, and we're putting it and putting that in place for all the other companies and making sure all the other companies had their own to hang up on the wall or whatever they needed to remind themselves, about the clients and everything. So we have actually literally a written statement for that. And so I love that you mentioned that. But the other thing is you're kind of getting into culture and how culture can either affect a business or an organization in a good way and a bad way. You have to understand, I will now in my old years of being in business for quite a while, I would now hire for culture versus hiring for talent any day of the week. Because if you have somebody who culturally does not have the company's vision at heart, it doesn't matter. Eventually, they will get to every single person in that organization. It
Hmm.
does not matter. Eventually, if you allow that to happen, and you'll have turnover and things like that that'll come from that. So culture is everything. So you need to really decide what do you want your business and what do you want that to be like, because the people who got you to 1 million are not always the people who are going to get you to 5 million are not always, and those are different people sometimes. And the people that got you to 5 million necessarily may not be the people who get you to 25 and then 100. And so all of those times that you go through and reevaluate that, you have to understand sometimes there are seasons for relationships and for coworkers. And that's okay. They probably will succeed at that level, and that's the level that they want to be at. So,
And would you say like even like one of the core values too is like the pursuit of wanting to grow?
mhm.
Because that's probably, I mean, that's true. Not everybody's gonna grow to the expansion because as you grow, getting back into like the business is an extension of you.
Yeah.
Everything is an extension of you because you are the culture.
Yeah.
You are the core value.
I feel like you were literally at our Monday meeting last week, because this is something I've spent tons of money on coaching to learn this. So I'm glad you brought it up because
Yeah.
you can't motivate the unmotivated. You can't teach hunger, right? You can't do that. So you can't make somebody want something for themselves if they don't want it for themselves. And I've spent
Hmm.
hours and tons of time trying to get people motivated that are unmotivated, like they can't be motivated until they decide for themselves. So I think that's important to recognize because you can waste a lot of time trying to change somebody else's identity that doesn't want to be changed. So they have to decide for themselves. And sometimes that may be rock bottom, or that may be, they have to have something happen in their life that's going to make them shift. It has to suck more to stay the same than it does to change. And for a lot of people, that can be pretty bad, right? They can take a pretty bad situation and stay in it for as long as possible versus taking the step to change and to be that. So it has to really get sometimes, most of the time, rock bottom before they'll actually make that change in their life.
And this goes back even in the earlier question about pivoting, like pivoting change. When you know it's time to change even for growth, because something I've learned with theta healing and belief work is that you don't have to you don't have to be in pain and you don't have to be backed in a corner or you don't have to let something get so bad in order to change for your highest and greatest good. So like when do you know it's time to like go to the next level or to expand out the business or you say, "Oh, I want to do business with this person." Like that I would consider like more of a healthier pivot, right? It's like when you know it's time to do that, or be like, okay, well, things aren't bad in the business. So, like, is having a cultural meeting or getting clear on core values and to stop what I'm doing to sit down and get strategic to then go and deliver this to the team? Like, is it really necessary right now when I have 1,000 other things going on? It's like that
Yeah.
timeout.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with that, for me, I've been fortunate enough, and that's where I would go back to networking and meeting people. I've been fortunate enough to, with meeting people and having conversations. I love having conversations with people because you really get to know them, and what you're gonna get a feeling from them, whether or not like you're gonna see once you start, and I can't teach this, so it's just something that's gone through experiences. You know when somebody has that it factor and there's going to be a light bulb come up during a conversation that you're both going to feel that you can go and attack it, and it can be a win-win situation. I'm fortunate enough to where I've been able to, through 23 years of mistakes in business, been able to gauge that. Now, sometimes I'm wrong, by the way. Obviously. So, but usually you have a good feeling to where you know it's right to pivot. It makes sense. It doesn't always have to make sense on paper, but it has to make sense in the long run to where you know that that relationship, or you have to put a lot of faith in that too. So there's a lot of faith and trust that goes in that. And sometimes people, ruin your trust and ruin that faith that you have in people. But in the long run, it's always worked out for me, to put my faith and my trust in people because if I stick to my standards and what I do, eventually I usually win from that aspect, no matter how long it takes.
I love that. Yeah, it could be like a long-term win. And yeah, as long as I think you can look in the mirror and be proud of yourself and know you did the right thing. Um,
Absolutely.
Getting back to the other question, we talked about who you had to overcome.
Yeah.
Like for this next level upgrade in your business life and your relationships, because I know you got a vision,
hmm
who do you have to become right now? What shoes do you have to step into?
it's funny you say this because I almost don't want to tell you because you're the type of person who will definitely hold me accountable to this. So I have to have growth conversations
Hmm.
more often. And I heard Kelly Siegel call them growth conversations. They're difficult conversations, but he called them growth conversations because realistically, you have to have them. So I have to become the manager. So I always wanted to be the type of business owner who people liked, right? I wanted to be the type, who's, and but then I became a pushover. So then I decided that so I've done it a lot better, but I even need to a higher extent need to become the person that has those growth conversations. And I've actually recently started to improve on that drastically, but I have to continue to be the person who has growth conversations and holds people accountable to a higher level because if they because I'm doing them a disservice if I think that if I'm letting them not be held accountable to a higher level and they stay and they quit and stay and they're not accountable for that higher level. I'm doing them a disservice because what happens is they become unhappy in where they're at and they could probably go somewhere else and work and be 10 times happier. So I
Mhm.
need to hold people to the accountability that's important to what I want, and by doing that, I have to have difficult conversations sometimes, or make sure I hire the right team that takes some of that load off from having difficult conversations. So I have to become a more stern, for lack of a better term, of a person and as a business owner, because there's many times that I will hurt myself financially or whatnot, even though I know that that's not the right thing to do.
Mhm. We call those shadow traits.
Hmm. I see. Yeah, I told you I was afraid to tell you.
I,
Yeah.
you know, surprisingly, because I get to be in the the behind the curtain type
Yeah.
of person, which I absolutely love. And I see it pretty common, which is avoidance behavior. Because if
Yeah.
you get to the core of it, it's avoiding hard conversations.
Hmm.
But I love the way that you explained it of I have to do this. It's my obligation. It's my duty if I really do care about the people, if I really do care about the business, if I really do love myself, I have to have these conversations. So you're not focusing in the moment. You're just describing like what's on the other side and you're focusing on that end target and then having to do what you got to do to like reverse engineer it. So yeah, I think like we sometimes get so caught up in that like process of pain versus the overall why.
Yeah. And then it doesn't become so daunting either when you do it that way because you look at the end result, right? It doesn't become as daunting and you realize that what you're doing something good both for you and for that person. Because,
Mhm.
if there's no future in the working together or no future in whatever it may be, we were just again wasting people's time and your own.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. And I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like when you do have those hard conversations, you get to really see how somebody's character is when they're told no or when things aren't going their way. And same thing with you. You see your character and how strong your character is when you get a punch to the gut or like a jab in the throat,
100, yes.
it's
Yeah.
like I feel like it's a character tester.
It is a character tester and it's a good character tester. It's actually that's why ignoring them can be such a bad thing too, right? Because like if you don't have those conversations, those growth conversations or those rough conversations for 2, 3 years, you may have been working with somebody or been hanging out with somebody or whatever it may be for 3 years of your life, and they're not even the person you thought they were. So
Hmm.
yeah,
And then
it's
you
a
both got resentment build up. And then
yep.
you gotta, yeah, there's a whole
Back
nother
all those
conversation.
issues. All a whole sorts of new work you got to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you noticed, like, as you've been building into yourself and you're like, well, let me ask you this. You're such a confident, man. And I say this too because there's a lot of men out there and women, but specifically, I want to talk about this with men, is that you, as externally successful as you are, right? Because we got internal, external, you you're very confident. You're not like barking at people. And I say like that's more like the wounded masculine, whereas you're trying to project this leadership of like the hustle, the alpha, this and the that.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of confusion around that. But with all of that, like, have you always been as confident and like put together as you are today? I know you mentioned at 25 you weren't, but from 25 to now, like, is that something that can be built for maybe somebody who does want to create a new identity for themselves?
It 100% can be built. Yes. And that's it 100% can be built. You have to start, you have to be a student of whatever you want to become. You have to become a student and constantly be learning, no matter what you're doing. And you have to be teachable so that other people who are willing to give you advice that you listen to, if it's quality advice, not free advice. So make sure
Mhm.
those people are in a spot you want to be in. It 100% is something that you can learn, something you can teach, it's something you can get to. And a lot of that came from, about the Girl on Fire thing. A lot of that came
Mhm.
from when I started interviewing people on my television show and podcasts and my magazines. I was fortunate enough to work with women and men. And once I started to see, powerful women and the difference between feminine and masculine energy and start learning about some of these things and basically got schooled, to learn some of these things. And realistically, I mean, if you see some of the reels or some of the old TV shows, I'll be like, oh my gosh, no wonder, when I had to learn about the menstrual cycle during one of my TV shows, and what the calorie intake and all that, I was like, but learning the feminine and the masculine and being okay with that, and once you become, it allows you to become into yourself. It's all very, very learnable. It's a good thing.
I say this too because I want to emphasize, like, and of course, I can't speak from a male, but for our younger male entrepreneurs that are very driven, very passionate, there's a lot of confusion around identity today more than ever. And if there's a younger male entrepreneur who, they're like black sheep wanting to go goat status and they want like all the external success, there's a lot of confusion around leadership and like a healthy masculine energy with leadership. What advice would you give them when it comes to discernment and like if they wanted to step into that? Because there's confusion out there.
Uh, that's a very big question. So when you start mixing, because external success is only going to take you so far without looking at the internal. So the internal is what's going to really drive you. I think you need to, with discernment, for me, it goes back to accountability. To where like I'm part of a men's group for church, that I go to, once a year. There's a retreat, and I think you really have to get clear. You have to block out all the noise and decide what kind of person you want to be first, and make sure that you do set down your moral compass, your core values, like you teach so eloquently, and you need to make sure that if somebody's not in alignment with that, you don't listen to them, or you listen to them for the part that you want to learn, but you understand that you're not giving up a piece of yourself to get into that role. There's a lot with the alpha male. There's good with being some alpha, but there's also, you got to be in touch with you from a whole person. And so with discernment, I mean, you have to spend time with yourself too and decide what kind of person you want to be, and time with God, and figure out what type of person you want to be, and understand that every time you slip out of those core values, that there's going to be work that needs done.
Mhm.
So I would that's why we have Motivation Success Network, is so that men, women, anybody who wants to get into entrepreneurship, anybody who wants to get into that, they can go in there, they can start watching people who, we talk to, and that, we know are the type of people that we want teaching, and so that they can learn at an early age or an older age that what to do and how to do those things and how to become the people they want to become. We want to have those materials out there for them.
Amen to all of that. Man, so I mean, how we have this
Yeah.
conversation. They don't know, but we know. I gotta keep us on track here.
Yeah.
If you were to leave the audience with like one thing to integrate into their life that would make an impact, what's one thing that somebody could put into practice starting with today that would change their life?
Don't underestimate yourself, first of all. You're capable of so much more. So I would put into force, I would literally get out a piece of paper and I would write down exactly what your goals are and what type of person you want to be. That's exactly what I would do because so many people don't know what they want in life, figure out exactly what you want in life. If you don't know what you want, it's just like a GPS, right? So if you get on a plane and you just start flying, you know don't know where you end up. Or in a car, you have to put in a signal, you have to put in exactly your location that you want to be. So you need to find out exactly what you want in life, what that is, whether it's a target for a financial target or a relationship target or whatever it is, health target, exactly what that looks like. Otherwise, you cannot build towards that. You're just going to go like a pinball, like a pinball, right? You're just
Mhm.
going to go all over the place. You have to get a proper target, decide exactly what that is that you want in life, and then we can put together a plan to do that, or you can put together a plan to get there. But if you don't know what it is, that's probably 90% of people's problem is they don't know what that end game looks like, what I want. And if you don't know what that is, somebody's going to tell you what it is, and you're going to be helping them build their dream instead of building your own.
Mhm. If sometimes that's what people want though, and that's okay, like
Hmm.
to build
Sure.
something together with somebody. But I will agree with you on that one part because I did want to have the follow up on that one question where a lot of people, especially our youth, and even when you're going through an identity shift at any age, I think back then before we knew about identity shift, it was called
Yeah.
midlife crisis.
Yeah. Had a couple of those
Right?
too. Yep.
Yeah, right. But then I'm like, oh, it's not a midlife crisis. It's an identity shift. I changed my mind. I don't want to be this. I want to be somebody new now. So I
Yep.
want different hair. I want different vibe. Da, da, da. So now it's called identity shift. They're not midlife crises anymore. In case
Perfect.
there's as we're maturing.
Yes.
Somebody that doesn't have clarity, regardless of their age, is there an exercise that you found very helpful to help give you clarity in moments where you feel mentally fogged out or you aren't clear on a vision of where you want to go or who you want to be?
You really have to get quiet. You really have to sit back and get quiet with yourself, whether it be in prayer, whether it be in meditation, or whatever you need to do. You have to get quiet. You have to get out from all the noise, whether it's in nature or whether it's in a room, a dark room, whatever it is. You have to really allow yourself to get quiet and look inside first and figure out, what's going on. And sometimes just it may be just not thinking about anything and just allowing yourself to recharge those batteries. Sometimes, we go so hard that we don't allow yourself to recoup that. So I would say look internally and get quiet and figure out. And that may take an hour, that may take 2 weeks. I don't know. It's, every person's built differently.
Mm-hmm.
But I would go ahead.
I would say sometimes it might even take months or even a year. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't, I think people need to hear more about that because then that like self-critic, that beat down of like, I don't know, it didn't come to me. And then you could quit. And then, so sometimes there's no time limit. It's just on
Mhm.
that part,
And everybody goes through it too. That's what people need to hear. Every entrepreneur,
everybody.
everybody in any stage of their life, you're gonna go through it sometime, and you're gonna face adversity, all those things. And if you don't get quiet, life has a way of making sure you get quiet, and you figure that out. So, I would suggest trying to do it internally and trying to catch it on your own first, or have a good sounding group around you that's able to tell you. Have people who hold
Mm.
you accountable around you that are going to be telling you that, hey. You need to reevaluate what's going on.
Wow. Yeah, you dropped so many diamonds on us today. So grateful that I had you on this show and everybody got to be blessed up with your wisdom and your experiences and the things that you shared. Um, how can we support you? Like, how can people watching reach out to you or support you or want to work with you?
Yeah. Well, you can find me at DennisPostema.com or motivationsuccess.com. I'm Dennis M. Postema on all the social medias. I would say go to motivationsuccess.com or go to any of your apps and put in motivation and success. And you can download our television network on almost any platform, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire. Go in there and just do yourself a favor, sign up for free and really start engaging and seeing some of the people that we have on the network. Tanya's on the network. We got have come and engage and see these things that are happening so that you can improve your life. That would be the best thing that could happen for me. And then if you want to
Mhm.
contact me for any of my services, feel free.
Amazing. And thank you so much. And I will say too, I want to emphasize this, like when you see somebody that's running a company, they're going to attract similar people in their network. So just keep that in mind in everything, whether you go to a conference, an event, a mastermind, look at the leader. You're going to see a lot of similarities with the people that are drawn to any organization.
Amen. I agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. We appreciate you hanging out with us. If you found value in today's episode, make sure you subscribe, that you like, you comment below one of your greatest takeaways for today, and you tag at Tanya C. Oliver and our guest. Until next time, remember that you were built for this, and it's time to elevate your business, mindset, and your life.